Oggy and the Cockroaches is about Oggy, who is a cat that lives in a house with 3 cockroaches, Joey, Marky, and Dee Dee, and they live to pester and annoy Oggy. Beginning all the way back in the late 1990s, Oggy's series boasts 8 seasons, a spin-off show with 3 seasons, a movie, and tons of other media. With at least 80 hours of content that I happily watched, there is a massive story involving time travel and marriage within the same family tree, and everything kinda interconnects. But first, as you all know, I ran for President of the United States of America, and I won. In a landslide. I am coming to you from the Oval Office, where I intend to stay for the next 8 years. I would like to thank all of my fellow Amongakins that elected me into this position. My first act as President of the United States of America is making this video. Oggy and the Cockroaches is a talkless show first airing in 1998, created in France by those same dudes that did Zig and Sharko. It gained worldwide popularity. In case you haven't seen or heard of this show, it's essentially Tom and Jerry. That's all you really need to know. There's absolutely no talking, only meowing. And just like every other talkless show I have talked about on this channel, they all revolve around food. Oggy likes to eat. It's his one desire in life, and the cockroaches are the only thing in his way. Not every episode plot revolves around food, but it usually always comes back to Oggy chasing the cockroaches, or even the cockroaches chasing Oggy. It's never quite clear whether Oggy wants to end the cockroaches or vice versa. The cockroaches usually use extreme measures to put an end to Oggy, but Oggy does the exact same thing back. With 8 seasons, a spin-off, and a movie, there's lots of content, and with so much time travel and living in various time periods, it's very hard to pick a beginning point for the story. Does it start when Oggy is a little amoeba, or when he is a baby? Is this really Oggy living in the caveman ages, or is it his ancestors? I guess it's easiest to go season by season, but before that, like every show I've talked about, we gotta go over our wacky cast of characters. Oggy. Oh boy, where do I even begin? He's had every job under the sun. He had a wild childhood, which is all explored in his spin-off show. He has a great and long ancestry spanning back to the very beginning of time. The modern-day Oggy is lazy and a glutton, and does nothing but lounge around and eat. If he's not doing that, he's, of course, battling the cockroaches. Near the end of the show, he adopts an elephant daughter and learns how to be a father. Hint, hint, that's where the show gets bad. Jack is Oggy's loving and protecting cousin. You need to remember the fact that he is Oggy's cousin, because that becomes very, very problematic down the road. Jack is also pestered by the cockroaches and tries to protect Oggy and himself from them. He's mostly pretty strict and very different from Oggy, so their personalities can sometimes clash. Joey. Despite what you may think, these cockroaches do have different personalities. That's kind of a lie. And Joey is the leader of them. And unfortunately, he has a bit of a dictator mentality. He is, without a doubt, the brains of the trio, but is often rejected by the others, leading to their defeat. His goal is to gain absolute control of Oggy's house, so he will do pretty much anything to attain that. He also abducted a baby one time, so... Marky. Just like the other two, he is mischievous and loves to prank and annoy Oggy in every possible way. Marky is pretty reckless and loves to cause mayhem, but is also pretty dim-witted. Dee Dee, the most immature of these three, and the most like Oggy in that he lives to eat. He loves it so much so that he cries over it, going to the extremes of eating large creatures like elephants. He will often team with Marky when Joey gets just a bit too authoritarian. Bob, the final main character of Season 1, is another antagonist. He is the neighbor of Oggy and Jack, a dog with anger issues. He really isn't that prominent this season, and I think he's a pretty flat character. It's reasonable why he's angry, as Oggy is a pain and a nuisance to anyone around him, but beyond being a Brutus, Bob doesn't offer much. There's not many more characters than this. Certain episodes have a one-time appearance of random rodents and other animals that never really have a lasting story consequence, so they really aren't worth mentioning. Well, okay, I'll mention one. The worm that Oggy was going to use as fish bait that actually fights back and gets a bazooka. And wouldn't you believe it, that is far from the weirdest thing this show has to offer. In one episode, Oggy's grandma comes to visit. She's a more decrepit and geriatric version of Oggy, but she still wants to kill the cockroaches. She makes a few more appearances after this one, but at least we know Oggy has some family still around. We know Oggy tries to make multiple attempts to expand his family and get himself a wifey. Surprisingly, Oggy can pull human women, and I'm really confused by the choice to make him attracted to human females. It's kind of off-putting. I guess though, as revealed in a different episode, he grew up with a human crush, so I guess that's just been his thing. Some of the episodes give a great foreshadowing of what will happen when the show gets bad. And that's when Oggy stops fighting the cockroaches, and they actually work together. Or at least accept each other and create a truce. It happens a lot. Most of the time, Oggy regretting his decisions on hurting the cockroaches. I mean, Oggy does legit kill these cockroaches sometimes. He turns them into ghosts once, and they still pester him in the afterlife. You know, these characters' mortality is kind of a funny thing, and with cartoon logic, it's completely stupid to talk about it. Do they defy death a lot? Yeah. Are they mangled beyond belief sometimes and fine the next episode? Yeah. Any logical in-universe explanation for that other than cartoon logic? Yeah. Quite a recurring theme, actually, like a really recurring theme, are the multiple sci-fi events and inventions. Where do I begin? How about the space versions of the cockroaches that come down and help the Earth cockroaches annoy Oggy? Both Oggy and the cockroaches use cloning to their advantage in multiple episodes through multiple different means. There's also tons of time travel stuff. In the final episode of the season, Oggy and the cockroaches get their hands on a freeze ray. Oggy freezes the cockroaches, and when they are unfrozen, they find Oggy and Jack as old men. The cockroaches are able to freeze Oggy and Jack, and then they wake up in the future, somehow untouched for decades. The two cats find the cockroaches very old, but then they do this time reversal thing or something, I don't really know, but Oggy ends up as a baby, and then everything is back to normal or something. They really kind of lost me in the last act of that episode. Just know they have multiple means of time travel. And now, for the final bit of Season 1, fetishes. Gotta love it. So as usual, with a lot of these talkless shows, they really embellish some questionable stuff. So the cockroaches inflate Oggy's stomach while he is sleeping. I don't know where they shove the pump. I know it's not his mouth. But either way, they pump Oggy's stomach full of air, and he believes he somehow got pregnant. After he does his usual chase with the cockroaches, Jack pops him and Oggy inflates the cockroaches, causing them to fly away. This was, to say the least, an unnecessary episode, and I think it's best we don't spend too much more time on it. Now, to Season 2, we are introduced to a new character, Monica, who is Oggy's sister. She's not super major and doesn't make that many appearances, but she does have an important storyline. As soon as Monica shows up, Jack falls head over heels for her. Anyone else seeing the issue? Jack is Oggy's cousin. Therefore, he is also Monica's cousin. Just another misstep from the writers. But what's worse is that they do eventually become a couple and have a kitten. So, I don't know. They were totally cool with this story being a thing as well. Like, this got passed through writers' rooms. I mean, okay. I'm not gonna judge. Yeah, I'm gonna judge. And speaking of family members, the cockroach's southern cousin comes to visit for an episode. But ironically, the little redneck befriends Oggy and helps him garden. Back to the sci-fi stuff, Jack creates a time-stopping remote. Oggy goes to space, actually multiple times. Nothing is super explainable. Oggy also receives a time-freezing whistle, so, and more on time, there's an episode where they manage to freeze the entire Earth and essentially go into another ice age, and a subsequent flooding, and at the end of the episode, the Titanic crashes into the iceberg Oggy and Jack were on. There's a weird weather event in one episode where the sun only shines on Oggy's house and it rains everywhere else. So there's gotta be some divine being choosing Oggy for some greater purpose. We kinda saw this in Season 1, but we truly see it exemplified this season, where Oggy and the cockroaches are dependent on each other. After Oggy decides to stop chasing them, the cockroaches make a robotic Oggy to chase them around. Firstly, showing how crazy intelligent they are to make a robot, but secondly, that they annoy Oggy for the fun of it, not out of necessity for food or whatever. In the last part of this season, it focuses heavily on Oggy traveling around the world. I've already mentioned he goes to space, a lot. He goes to Africa, then he also specifically goes to Egypt, where inside the pyramid, there is a time vortex where Oggy and the cockroaches time travel back to ancient Egyptian time, and Oggy becomes a slave and the cockroaches are hailed as, royalty or whatever you want to call it. They also release a mummy from back then into the modern day, but I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. In a different episode, Oggy breaks into a maximum security prison. Didn't know Oggy had it in him. At the end of the season, Oggy goes to Paris, which, honestly seems kind of mundane compared to the other places he went. And Season 2 is done. Honestly, Season 3 doesn't really offer anything new. Turns out, Oggy is legit invincible. I mean, yeah, this explains a lot, but also raises so many more questions at the same time. It explains how he can survive literally anything, and it also explains what I will talk about in Season 5, but it raises more questions, and the biggest one, why Oggy? Why is he so special? He has a doppelganger, or clone, or something, that isn't exactly explained. There's a witch that makes Oggy small and the cockroaches big, but that's happened before. No biggie. There's an episode where vegetables come to life. Still no biggie. The most preposterous episode of this season is when Oggy and the cockroaches get transported into a cartoon. Yeah, they even acknowledge Oggy has his own cartoon. So he's a cartoon in a cartoon with these other cartoon characters. Not much happens though, and Oggy wakes back up in the real world. But he knows he's in a cartoon. He held his own DVD. What is going on in this show? Alright. Now Season 4. It's an important season for Oggy's character development, but chronologically, it's likely one of the last things in the story, kinda, sorta. So actually, we're gonna move on to the movie and Season 5. Both of these no longer feature Oggy in his house being lazy. It completely stops the regular storytelling and changes all of it. Sure, it's still Oggy chasing after the cockroaches, but now they are traveling through time. It's a little unclear if they are traveling through time, or if these are Oggy's and the cockroaches' ancestors that just happen to act like their descendants. I think it makes more sense that Oggy and the cockroaches in the movie and Season 5 are the ancestors of the modern day ones, but there's always the possibility that it's the modern day ones because they can time travel and Oggy is invincible, so technically he could survive all of this time. In the movie, it goes through 5 different time periods. It begins in basically pre-time, or whatever the period is. Oggy and the cockroaches are single-celled organisms. Then we get Oggy in the prehistoric era, then in the Middle Ages, then in 19th century London, and then finally in the Star Age. I was pretty disappointed in this movie. They didn't keep a coherent story going, but instead split it into 3 major different stories, so not much of a movie, just 3 long episodes put together. And what happens in each time period is they kinda just chase each other and run around and get in each other's plans. In Season 5, they continued the different periods. Here are all the different ages Oggy and the cockroaches fight in. Ancient Egypt, Ancient Rome, American Wild West, Early Modern France, 1920s New York, the 7 seas of the 18th century, Ancient China, 17th century India, Viking Age, Persian Empire, Scientific Revolution, Inca Empire, 20th century explorations, Renaissance, Napoleonic era, Mongolian era, Space Age, Ancient Japan, Stone Age, a super-powered era, Greek mythology, Odyssey, Khmer Empire, Africa, which isn't a time period, but whatever, Legend of King Arthur, and again, all of these time periods could be their ancestors, or time travel, or it could just be that the characters are immortal and they are thousands and thousands of years old. All 3 things are just as likely possible. I slightly lean towards they're immortal because Jack, Bob, and a certain other character are also in these other time periods. And now it's time to talk about that certain other character, Olivia. Now, Season 4, it has your typical episodes about food and laziness. Your typical episodes with weird sci-fi stuff, teleportation, and all that. You get it by now. But now there's a whole new aspect, trying to woo over Olivia, Oggy's new crush, and later girlfriend. On the cockroaches' side, they also get a love interest. Inside of Olivia's house, Lady K lives there, a new antagonist, and a female cockroach. All 3 of the cockroaches fall in love with her. In the penultimate episode, called Oggy and the Mermaid, they are venturing under the sea and find a mermaid and a shark playing ping pong. So, Zig and Sharko? No, but it's definitely a reference. At the end of the season, Oggy and Olivia get married. Okay, now here's the thing. After Season 4, we get the time period stuff, which is all fine and dandy. After that, though, we get Season 6 and 7, which I'm kinda surprised was created. So what they did for these 2 seasons was just essentially reanimated prior seasons. We've already talked about all of that content. In Season 7, they added about 20 episodes that weren't just plain redos, but they also don't really add anything. The only one worth mentioning is the episode where the cockroaches get Oggy canceled from the fake news outlets. After Season 7, Oggy and the cockroaches completely changed for the worse. They changed their dynamic. They changed the animation. They even changed the name. Season 8 was now called Oggy and the Cockroaches Next Generation. So the biggest aspect of the show was Oggy's rivalry with the cockroaches. And they basically remove that. They're like fully friends now. So there goes the show. Oggy gets a new adoptive daughter. She is an elephant and her name is Paya. Or Pia. I don't care. They get some pretty average stories, nothing like super wild at all. The wacky sci-fi stuff is non-existent. Oggy just becomes a dad, and he just isn't dad material. After season 8, we got season 9. Oh wait, no we didn't. They ended it. Cool, no conclusion. Isn't that just our favorite thing with every long-running show? Alright. Wait, what's that? A spin-off, you say? Oggy Oggy. Now this is a prequel. Oggy is a little kitten now, and looks like something out of Kirby. Everything looks all squishy and cool. All of the locations take place in this, like, void. So there's a really cool aesthetic. It's also 3D. Here's the thing. Jack is gone. Olivia is gone. Bob is gone. And the cockroaches are gone. So, also, this is a baby show. It has not much of really anything to do with Oggy and just uses his name to sell it. Of course they did that. Companies tend to do that a lot. Also, we've seen flashbacks and stuff before, and this is not how Oggy looked as a baby. Oggy Oggy isn't actually important, like at all. But I'll go over some of the characters. This is Mallow, and this is Sporty, Oggy's 2 best friends. I miss Jack. I miss the cockroaches. And dare I say that's the end of the Oggy lore. There's some comics, there's some games. It just doesn't really amount to much, really. I don't know if Oggy and the Cockroaches is done. The main show ended in 2018, I think. Oggy Oggy seemingly ended in 2023. Is this where Oggy ends? I mean, they did kind of milk him dry. Anyway, thanks for electing me President of the United States of America. I have now delivered my promise to the people. Even though I won, still subscribe. I can't get enough of that. I'm getting close to that big ol' 100,000 silver play button. I think that would be pretty cool. Also, like it if you want, comment, you know, whatever you want to do.